I don't know why you're making such a scene, Laura. You had to see this coming, Paul said, his voice cold and dismissive as he packed his suitcase. You're turning 50 today, and let's be honest, you're just too old for me now. The words hit me like a physical blow, each syllable cutting deeper than the last. I stood frozen in our bedroom, the same room we'd shared for 25 years of marriage, watching my 55-year-old husband methodically fold his designer shirts. Paul, please. It's my birthday. We can talk about this, I pleaded, my voice barely a whisper. He just laughed, that cruel sound nothing like the warm chuckle I'd fallen in love with decades ago. There's nothing to talk about. Amanda's waiting for me. She's 25, gorgeous, and actually understands me. He zipped up his suitcase with finality. I've already filed the divorce papers. Don't act surprised. You must have noticed how bored I've been lately. My name is Laura Mitchell, and this is how my 50th birthday became the day my life fell apart. Or so I thought at the time. As an event planner in Houston, I'd spent years making other people's special moments perfect. But here I was, on what should have been my own milestone celebration, watching my husband walk out on me for a woman half my age. I never saw it coming. Sure, Paul had been distant lately, working late hours and taking mysterious business calls, but I'd attributed it to stress from his sales job. We'd built a comfortable life together, a beautiful home in the suburbs, regular vacations, countless shared memories. I'd supported him through every career move, every setback, every triumph. I'd put my own dreams on hold more times than I could count, believing we were partners in building our future. The signs had been there, I realized now. The new clothes, the gym membership he suddenly couldn't live without, the constant comments about keeping ourselves young. All while I was busy planning our anniversary trip to Europe, a surprise I'd been saving for over a year to afford. The irony wasn't lost on me that I'd spent the previous evening finalizing those reservations, completely unaware that my husband was planning a very different kind of trip. Don't bother calling or texting, Paul said, straightening his collar in the mirror one last time. I'll have my lawyer contact you about dividing assets. With that, he walked out of our bedroom, designer luggage in hand, not a trace of remorse on his face. The man I'd loved, the man who'd promised to grow old with me, had just discarded 25 years of marriage like yesterday's newspaper. And he'd chosen my 50th birthday to do it. The first few weeks after Paul left were a blur of tears and sleepless nights. I wandered through our house, now painfully quiet, feeling like a ghost in my own life. Every corner held memories. The kitchen, where we'd hosted countless dinner parties. The living room, where we'd spent lazy Sunday mornings. The garden we'd planned and planted together. I barely ate, lost 15 pounds, and could hardly focus at work. My best friend Sarah practically moved in with me during those first days. She'd lost her own husband to cancer 2 years earlier, so she understood grief intimately. But at least Michael didn't choose to leave, she'd say, her voice tight with anger at Paul. She was right. There was a special kind of pain in being discarded, in knowing I hadn't been enough. The divorce proceedings were brutal. Paul's lawyer was aggressive, arguing that since I'd let myself go and focused on my career instead of being a proper wife, I deserved less than my fair share. It didn't matter that I'd supported Paul through his early career struggles, or that my event planning business had helped put us through the lean years. All that mattered was that I was, in their words, past my prime. I discovered that Paul had been planning this for months, systematically moving money around and documenting every perceived flaw in our marriage. He'd even started a private Instagram account to showcase his new life with Amanda, full of photos at expensive restaurants and luxury vacations I hadn't known about. Each new revelation felt like another betrayal, another crack in the foundation of what I'd thought was a solid marriage. The worst part was facing our friends and family. Some quietly took Paul's side, suggesting that I should have tried harder to keep myself young and attractive. Others avoided me altogether, as if divorce was contagious. My own sister Jennifer had the audacity to ask if I'd considered Botox, just to freshen up a bit. Only Sarah and a handful of true friends stood firmly by my side, reminding me that I was worth more than my age or appearance. The breaking point came one rainy afternoon when I was sorting through old photos, trying to decide which ones to keep. I found our wedding album, and there we were, young, in love, full of dreams. The contrast between that hopeful bride and my current reality hit me hard. But instead of triggering another crying spell, something different happened. I felt anger rising, and with it, a spark of determination. I called Martha, my most successful client who'd been asking me to take on a bigger role in her corporate events company. I'd always declined, not wanting to work longer hours that might take me away from Paul. The irony of that decision wasn't lost on me now. "Martha, remember that position we discussed? Is it still available?" I asked, my voice stronger than it had been in weeks. "Laura, yes, absolutely. But it would mean managing our West Coast expansion. You'd need to travel frequently, rebuild our client base there from scratch. Are you sure you're ready for that?" I looked around at my empty house, at the life I'd built around a man who'd thrown it all away. "I'm not just ready, Martha. I need this." That evening, as I sat at my kitchen table making plans, my phone buzzed with a text from Paul. He'd sent a photo of himself with Amanda at some rooftop bar, both of them laughing into the camera. The caption read, "Living my best life. Hope you're doing okay, Laura." The old Laura would have crumbled, spent another night crying into her pillow. But something had shifted inside me. I deleted the message without responding and pulled out my laptop. If Paul thought he could just discard me and watch me wither away, he was about to be very surprised. I stayed up late into the night, researching fitness programs, updating my resume, and making lists of all the dreams I'd put on hold for my marriage. By the time I finally went to bed, I had a plan. Paul might have chosen to make my 50th birthday the end of our story, but I was going to make it the beginning of a whole new chapter, one he would regret not being part of. The first major test of my resolve came 3 months after Paul left. I was at the grocery store when I ran into Amanda's mother, Susan, who also happened to be my former yoga instructor. She approached me with a sympathetic look that made my stomach turn. "Laura, I'm so sorry about everything," she said, touching my arm. "I had no idea Amanda was seeing a married man until it was too late. If it helps, I don't approve of what they're doing." I forced a smile, gripping my shopping cart tighter. "How are they doing, Susan?" The words tasted bitter in my mouth. She hesitated, then leaned in closer. "Honestly, not great. Paul's been, well, controlling. He tracks Amanda's spending, criticizes her friends, gets jealous when she talks to men her age. Last week he threw a fit because she wanted to go to a music festival instead of some business dinner." The information hit me differently than I expected. Instead of pain, I felt a strange sense of validation. The perfectly curated social media posts hadn't told the whole story. "That must be hard for you to watch," I said carefully, noting how Susan's face clouded with worry. "It is. But what's worse is seeing him blow through money like water trying to keep up with her lifestyle. Designer clothes, expensive restaurants, weekend trips. Amanda mentioned he's had to dip into his retirement savings. So I thought about the substantial settlement I'd fought for in our divorce, thanks to my lawyer's discovery of Paul's hidden assets. He'd been furious when the judge ruled in my favor, but I'd stood my ground. "I should go," Susan said, checking her phone. "But Laura, you look amazing. Whatever you're doing, it's working." She was right. The stress weight had melted away, replaced by muscle from my new fitness routine. My skin glowed from proper rest and self-care, and my wardrobe had evolved from comfortable wife to confident businesswoman. I left the store feeling lighter, stronger. Paul's perfect new life was showing cracks, while mine was just beginning to bloom. The transformation of my life continued gaining momentum. I threw myself into the West Coast expansion project, traveling frequently between Houston and Los Angeles. My new role challenged me in ways I hadn't experienced in years, and I thrived on it. The loneliness I'd felt after Paul left was replaced by a sense of purpose and achievement. One evening, while closing a major deal in LA, I received a flurry of texts from Sarah. Paul had shown up at our old favorite restaurant with Amanda, only to find me there hosting a corporate dinner with 20 high-profile clients. According to Sarah, he'd stopped dead in his tracks when he saw me. He couldn't take his eyes off you, Sarah wrote. Amanda noticed too. She kept trying to get his attention, but he was fixated on you in that red dress. When you stood up to give your speech, I thought his jaw would hit the floor. I had to smile. The red dress was new, something I'd bought to celebrate landing $1 million contract. The old Laura would have thought it too bold, too attention-grabbing. But I wasn't that Laura anymore. Later that night, Paul tried to call me. When I didn't answer, he sent a text. You looked beautiful tonight. I miss our talks. Maybe we could grab coffee sometime. I showed the message to my assistant, Emma, the next morning. She'd become a close friend through our long hours working together. He's realizing what he lost, she said, shaking her head. Classic midlife crisis backfire. She was right. Paul had expected me to crumble, to become the cautionary tale of a discarded older wife. Instead, I'd rebuilt myself into someone stronger, more successful, and, ironically, more vibrant than I'd been in years. The validation he'd sought from a younger woman was proving hollow, while I was genuinely flourishing. The culmination of my transformation came at an industry gala 6 months after that restaurant encounter. I was receiving an award for innovation in event planning, and the ceremony was being held at Houston's most prestigious hotel. I'd invited Sarah as my +1, knowing Paul would be there. His company always sponsored these events. I stepped onto the stage in a midnight blue gown that had cost a month's salary but was worth every penny. As I accepted the award and began my speech, I caught sight of Paul in the audience. He was alone. Success isn't just about business achievements, I said into the microphone, my voice steady. It's about finding yourself when life takes unexpected turns. Sometimes what feels like an ending is actually a beginning. The applause was thunderous. After the ceremony, Paul approached me at the bar. He looked older somehow, tired around the eyes. Amanda left, he said without preamble. Moved in with someone her age last week. I've been doing a lot of thinking, Laura. I made a terrible mistake. I took a slow sip of my champagne, letting the moment stretch. That must be difficult for you, I finally replied, my voice neutral. I miss you, he said, his voice cracking. I miss our life together. Everything with Amanda was just empty. A fantasy that fell apart. Do you think maybe we could... No, I interrupted quietly but firmly. We can't. You didn't just leave me, Paul. You tried to humiliate me. You chose my 50th birthday to tell me I was too old for you. But look around. I've never been better, and I did it without you. I picked up my award and my clutch. I wish you well, Paul. I really do. But my life is just beginning, and you're not part of it anymore. The year following my confrontation with Paul brought changes I never could have imagined. My West Coast expansion project exceeded all expectations, leading to Martha offering me a full partnership in the company. You've transformed our business, she told me during the contract signing. And honestly, Laura, you've transformed yourself too. She wasn't wrong. The woman who had once centered her entire existence around her husband's needs had been replaced by someone who woke up each day excited about her own possibilities. My calendar was filled with business meetings, yes, but also with art classes, hiking groups, and dinner dates with friends both old and new. I sold our old house, too many memories, and bought a modern condo overlooking the city. The process of furnishing it became a sort of therapy, choosing each piece to reflect my taste alone. No more compromising on the color scheme or keeping Paul's beloved leather recliner that I'd always hated. My space became a reflection of my newfound independence, filled with bright colors and contemporary art. Sarah teased me about becoming something of a local legend among our social circle. You're giving hope to every woman who thinks life ends after divorce, she said one evening over wine. You should see how Paul's friends' wives look at you, like you're some sort of magical creature who discovered the fountain of youth. The truth was, I did feel younger than I had in years, but not because I was trying to compete with 20-somethings. I felt young because I was finally living authentically, free from the constant worry of being too old for someone else's standards. Through mutual friends, I heard that Paul was struggling. Amanda had taken him for a significant amount of money before leaving, and his attempts to date other young women were becoming increasingly desperate and embarrassing. His colleagues had started distancing themselves, uncomfortable with his behavior at company events. "He's become a cautionary tale," Emma observed after one industry function where Paul had shown up with another inappropriately young date, only to be largely ignored by his peers. "Meanwhile, you're the success story everyone wants to emulate." The irony wasn't lost on me. Paul had left me because he thought I was too old. Yet here I was, more vibrant and successful than ever, while he was the one who seemed to be aging poorly, weighed down by his own choices and regrets. 1 year after the gala, I received an invitation to speak at a women's leadership conference about reinventing yourself after 50. The irony was perfect. I'd be giving the keynote speech on what would have been my wedding anniversary with Paul. Standing at the podium, looking out at hundreds of women, I shared my story without shame or bitterness. "Sometimes life's cruelest moments become our greatest catalysts," I told them. 1 year ago, I was labeled too old by someone who was supposed to love me forever. Today, I run a multi-million-dollar business, travel the world, and feel more alive than ever. The response was overwhelming. Women lined up afterwards to share their own stories, many crying as they thanked me for giving them courage. Some had faced similar rejections, others were stuck in unhappy marriages, afraid of starting over. I realized my story had become something bigger than just personal vindication. I established a mentorship program for women over 50 who wanted to restart their careers or begin new ventures. The network grew quickly, and soon we were hosting monthly meetings, workshops, and even retreats. Watching these women rediscover their worth and potential became as fulfilling as my business success. Paul reached out one last time during this period. He'd heard about my speaking engagement through business circles and sent a long email. He wrote about his regrets, his loneliness, how he'd ruined the best thing in his life because of his own insecurities. He was seeing a therapist now, he said, working through his issues with aging and validation seeking. I read the email twice, then archived it without responding. There was a time when his words would have shaken my world, but that time had passed. His approval or regret no longer held any power over my happiness. At my most recent event, a participant asked me if I'd ever consider dating again. "I'm open to it," I replied honestly. "But I'm no longer looking for someone to complete me. My life is already full and beautiful. If love comes along, it will have to add to that, not define it." Looking back at my journey, I'm amazed by how completely my life has transformed. The woman who crumbled on her 50th birthday, devastated by her husband's cruel departure, hardly resembles who I am today. My business success is wonderful, but it's the inner transformation that means the most. I've learned that age is just a number. It's your energy, passion, and willingness to embrace life that truly matters. While Paul desperately clings to youth through superficial relationships and material displays, I've found genuine vitality by accepting and celebrating who I am. The most satisfying part? I didn't need revenge or schemes to make Paul regret his choices. Simply living my best life, focusing on my own growth and happiness, accomplished that more effectively than any planned retribution could have. His regret isn't my triumph. My triumph is the life I've built for myself. My network of empowered women continues to grow. Together, we're challenging society's outdated notions about aging and feminine worth. When I look in the mirror now, I don't see someone who's too old. I see a woman who's just hitting her stride, whose most exciting chapters are still being written. Last week, I was invited to be a guest speaker at a prestigious business school, sharing my story of personal and professional reinvention. As I walked onto the stage, I caught my reflection in a window and smiled. At 51, I radiate a confidence that no number can diminish. Sarah often jokes that I should write a book. From Cast Aside to Coming Alive, a midlife renaissance. Maybe I will. After all, if my story can inspire other women to see their worth beyond someone else's shallow judgment, it's worth telling. My life now is rich with possibilities I never imagined when I was desperately trying to be the perfect wife. I travel when I want, make decisions without second-guessing myself, and surround myself with people who appreciate me for who I am, not what I can do for them. The other day I overheard someone refer to me as that amazing woman who bloomed after 50. It made me smile, because that's exactly what I did. I bloomed. Not out of spite, not to prove anything to Paul, but because I finally gave myself permission to grow into who I was meant to be. Age isn't an expiration date. It's an invitation to begin again, wiser and stronger than before.